Good afternoon. Hope you have seen the videos related to this coning of wheel and tilting of rails. I had shared it with you yesterday on your Google Classroom. If you have seen it, it will be very easy for you to understand this concept today. And I'll just explain it today. Some of you might have also understood it just by seeing the videos, so it will be just a revision for those students. Those who have not seen, so I can't guarantee whether you'll understand 100% of what is taught today. So it's up to you. So just keep your ears, eyes, and presence of mind open, and we'll start with this. So coning of wheels, to understand why we cone your wheels. So let's start from the basic. So consider a railway track. Now, railway tracks are straight, but they are as well as on the curved, or you have a curved track. In case the alignment is changing and your train has to take a left turn or a right turn, whatever it might be. So on curved track, generally we require this coning of wheel a lot. It's not like we require only on the straight track or only on curved track. We require it on the straight track as well. But on curved track, you have a much more necessity for this coning of wheels. So what is it? We'll see. So I have just taken a part of a curved track. This is a curved track. So now if I consider some length or section xy, starting point x and ending point y. So in this xy section, section, if I consider the length of the outer rail, okay, I have highlighted that in the red line. So this length, it will be L naught. Suppose I designate it as L naught. So that will be the length of the outer rail. I am considering that this is my outer rail O and this is my inner rail I. So considering that the length of this outer rail in this section XY, it will be L naught or L0 or LO, whatever you can say. And in the same section, the length of this inner rail, it will be Li. Now, just by looking at this picture itself, it will be, you can guess that obviously the length of the outer rail, it will be greater than length of inner rail. Okay, for this section, what I have considered XY. Now, just think over it that if you have this section, this curved section, and length of outer rail is more than the length of inner rail. Okay? By some amount, it might be varying depending on the gauge and depending on the site conditions, but it's more on the curved section. Now, before going ahead, let's just go back 2 years, and engineering mechanics, you might have studied the angular momentum, angular velocity. Okay? So this is a typical example that I am showing you here, that a car wheel, it is subjected to angular velocity. Angular velocity, it comes into picture whenever there is an object which is rotating about a common axis or one particular axis. So in this case, or in case of car, this is the axis, the red dot. This is the axis around which your wheel it rotates, and due to that rotation, then your vehicle it goes in the forward direction as shown in this green arrow. Now the velocity by which it rotates, so that can't be given by normal v in kmph, that velocity, because it is rotating about some axis. So that velocity, it is termed as angular velocity, omega. Generally it's in radians per second or radians per hour. Okay. And this angular velocity, if you want to convert it, that you have to find out that okay, your wheel is rotating at some angular velocity, but at what speed is the car going? So that speed of the car, we never say it in radian per second or radian per hour. We always say it in kmph or meter per second. So how we came to that is, we have a simple formula of v is equal to r omega, where v is your linear speed or linear velocity, more correctly, and omega is your angular velocity, and if you multiply the angular velocity with the radius of the wheel which is rotating, okay, in this case it's a car, so the wheel of the car, it is having some radius, so that radius if you multiply with the angular velocity by which the wheel is moving, so you will get to know by what speed the or by what velocity the car is moving ahead. So that velocity is linear velocity v. If this is clear to you, this concept, then just consider now apply this to the train. Here I have given an example of car, but now you all have seen train. Train also has wheels. Those wheels are rounded. It has some radius, and again there are two wheels. You have, suppose this is the top view, so you have such kind of assembly in which you have two wheels on two ends, and in between you have something called an axle, which is a rigid rod, metal rod. So that's an axle, and then you have wheels on both the sides. Okay. Same is the here. So you have a wheel. So this whole system, it will be running on this track. Now, in case of roads, it's we don't come across this concept of conic of wheel. The reason is because on the road, you can drive anywhere you want. The width is not specified, or the path is not specified that you have to follow only this path. You have a steering in your hand, and you can easily go left or right as wherever you wish. But in case of railways, what we have a restriction is the path is decided for us. In case of railways or railway engine, it doesn't have a steering. It just has accelerator and brakes in general sense if I talk. So if you don't have a steering, so that railway has to follow the definite path which is already laid, okay, the tracks. Now that's why the problem comes on the turning part. Now on the turning, if, what I told you, that suppose consider these two, this assembly, this axle and wheel assembly, I place it on this track, okay, and I try to move it. So what will happen is this LO is greater than LI. So definitely, if this is the case, one of the wheel which is on the outer rail, suppose this wheel goes on the outer rail and this wheel goes on the inner rail. So the wheel which is on the outer rail, it has to cover greater distance, LO. And at the same time, the inner wheel has to cover less distance, Li. Now the problem is our wheel and axle assembly, it is rigid. Okay, nowhere it is flexible. As in, it's not like one of the wheel or this axle can be extended or it elongates and then it comes back to original positions. We don't have that assembly. What we want is our outer wheel should cover greater distance as compared to inner wheel, but both the wheels should start at the same point from the same time, and it should reach at same point as well. What I'm trying to say is, suppose I consider that assembly is kept over here at point X and it is going in this direction. So the moment your wheels start moving from this point X, both the wheels, it should cover the respective distance. Outer wheel should cover L naught and inner wheel should cover Li, and it should reach at this Y location at the same time. It should not happen that your inner wheel is reaching first and then your outer wheel is reaching. That in that case, that is actually not possible. If that even it tends to happen in such a case, then your rail engine, it will derail and you will be having a mishap. So I hope you have understood that your one wheel has to cover a greater distance, L0 LO, and inner rail or inner wheel has to cover a less distance. Now what does that mean? That obviously outer wheel, it should be having more velocity than inner wheel. Only then both the wheels will reach at the same time at point Y. If I don't have this, if both the wheels are having the same velocity, then same linear velocity, mind well, if both the wheels have same linear velocity, then they will not reach on time. They will not reach at same instance at the y location, because obviously outer wheel has to travel a greater distance. Now, if suppose you want this to happen, that the outer wheel should have more linear velocity than the inner wheel, then just go back to this concept of v is equal to r omega. Okay, we just now discussed that in this, what is there? This v naught is nothing but what is going to be here, the linear velocity of the wheel, outer wheel. So that depends on two components, the radius and the angular velocity. Now, angular velocity, it is same for both the wheels. The reason is, we are, as I told you, our system is rigid. Okay? Both the wheels are fixed or attached to the same axle. It is having a common axle. So the speed by which the common axle will rotate, the same speed will be imparted to both the wheels. So if that is the case, so we can't have two omegas here, we will have only one omega. So either, if you want this condition to happen, V naught should be greater than Vi. So either omega of outer wheel should be greater than omega of inner wheel, that is angular velocity of outer wheel should be greater than inner wheel, or the radius of outer wheel should be greater than radius of inner wheel. Sorry, I have written R1 and R2. It should be R naught and Ri. Ri is the radius of the inner wheel and Ro is the radius of outer wheel. So now, just now I told you, our system is rigid. We have a one axle, and on that one axle, both the wheels are attached, and by the speed with which the axle will rotate, the same speed will be imparted to the wheel. So that's why we cannot have this condition, that we cannot have two omega values. Okay, we cannot have different angular velocity for outer wheel and different angular velocity for inner wheel. So what remains is in our hand is to apply this condition, or make sure that this condition takes place, that the radius of outer wheel is greater than the radius of inner wheel. So from this slide, this is the takeaway, or this is the final conclusion, that if you want your railway to start from X and reach Y, and in that process both the wheels will start at same instant and it will reach at the Y location at the same point of time, then the radius of outer wheel, it should be greater than radius of inner wheel. Now you will say, if this is the case, if it is going from X and Y, so radius of outer wheel, okay, just I have shown here that the black arrow is shown the direction. So the radius of outer wheel needs to be greater than radius of inner wheel. So one solution can be just give size of the outer wheel bigger than the size of inner wheel. But that will only satisfy the condition when the train is moving in this direction. Suppose train is moving in this direction from Y to X. So in that case, what can we do? So again, we cannot do like this, that all the time we just lift the train and then just turn it around and again keep it. We can't do this. So whatever solution needs to be given, it should be such that even if the train goes from one direction to other, or other direction to the previous one, there should be facility to traverse or travel this curve without any hindrance. So remember this. Now we will be discussing on this, that radius of outer wheel is greater than radius of inner wheel, or it should be like this, in order to make this possible, that your train will move on the curve smoothly. So for that, if you consider, suppose that this is the wheel type, okay, this is a typical wheel in which this is the trade of the wheel. Okay, your wheel, it has railway wheel, it has two components. This is the trade part, okay, this much, and whatever this protruding part you can see, this is nothing but flange. Okay, we'll come to it later, that why this flange is required. For now, just remember there is something like this. Now, in case of this figure, the first figure that I am showing, the radius, if you see, it is same throughout the trade of the wheel. Okay, if I measure the radius here, okay, suppose this is the center line that this is the central axis that I marked for this axle and wheel assembly. Okay, and if I find out the radius at this point, so this radius will be something r. This radius will be same throughout wherever I measure on this wheel, and same on the other wheel as well. Okay, so the radius is not changing. But what we have seen in the previous slide, that what we want is the radius of outer wheel, it should be greater than radius of inner wheel. And this should be universal. This should be applicable for the wheels even if it is moving from left to right or right to left. Okay. So for both the direction you have to give the solution. So if this is the case, if this is the type of wheel that we are providing, so in that case this is not possible. R naught or RO cannot be greater than RI, or the internal inner rail or inner wheel, because we are having a fixed one. So what is the solution to this? If this first this type of wheel is given, so what will happen is the railway, it will not complete the curve, it will stop somewhere, or it will get stuck somewhere in the between of the curve. The video that I have given to you, so in that video there is one video in which RWTH Aachen University has demonstrated with the help of an small model, that if you have this kind of wheel, so if you just roll it over the railway track, small railway track that prepared, so that wheels, they get stuck somewhere in the between during the traversing of the curve. Okay, so that happens because you are not satisfying this condition. Now to satisfy this condition, R outer greater than R inner, what we do is we give this kind of wheel. Okay. So here you can see the coning has come into picture. Now that coning is nothing but whatever slope in the previous wheel type, there was no slope to this wheel surface, but now you can see there is a slope to this wheel surface. Now in this picture, the slope is shown, or the amount of slope is just exaggerated so that you can visualize it. In actual, the slope is very negligible. It's just in the order of 1 in 20. 1 in 20 as in, for 20 horizontal you have a decrease in 1 vertical. So that is the amount of slope in the actual case. Here, just for your visualization and your understanding, I have exaggerated it. So when you give this kind of slope or coning to your wheel, now what will happen is, suppose you start your railway and it starts going on the curve part. So suppose this is the outer rail or outer wheel, and this is the inner. Okay. Railway is going in this direction, or it is taking the turn on the right side. So what will happen is, uh, you all know that on curves, what happens is there is a centrifugal force. Now your train is taking curve on the right side. Okay. In plan, if I just try to show you, so it is taking a curve on the right side. Okay. These are the railway. This is the railway track. So if it is taking curve on the or turn on the right side, so the centrifugal force that will be acting, it will be in the opposite direction. If this is the radius of that center of that curve, so your centrifugal force CF, it will be acting in the outward direction, which will tend to push this wheel to the left. Now in that case, what will happen is, the point of contact between this rail and this wheel, it will be somewhere here in case of inner wheel, and in case of outer wheel it will be somewhere over here. Okay. Now just focus on these lines that I have drawn. I'll just highlighted this yellow line that I'm drawing on the wheel. Okay. So what I'm saying, in case of curves or in case of turnings due to the centrifugal force, your wheel assembly is shifted or it's pushed towards the outer curve or outer rail. Okay, obviously we have to counteract this, we have that mechanism, but tend to some part of centrifugal force tries to shift it to the left side. So in that case, what happens is the point of contact between the rail, okay, if this suppose this is the point of contact of the rail and the wheel, so that is somewhere around here in the inner wheel, okay, the line which I have shown in yellow. And in case of outer wheel, it is somewhere here. So again, visually, if you just compare, so obviously this length, if I again consider this length, okay, this now I'll call it as L1, and this length I'll call it as L2. So this L1 will be is obviously greater than L2, as you can see in this picture itself visually. So now if L1 is greater than L2, then obviously if I draw just a axis and I measure the radius, or I just divide this L1 and L2 by 2, so that R1, what I will get, it will be greater than R2, which is nothing but R1 is nothing but the radius of the outer wheel, and R2 is nothing but radius of the inner wheel. So if you see, we have achieved whatever we had seen in the last slide, that R0, RO should be greater than Ri. So that we have achieved here in the form of this coning. Okay. Now you will ask, if this is the case, how does the railway it maintains it on the curve as well as on the straight section? So now that railway engine, it is railway engine and all the bogies, whatever it has, so it completely has some weight, and that weight is transferred to this through this wheel. So by default, your wheel system, it tries to attain equilibrium, and in case of equilibrium, attaining equilibrium, what happens is, by equilibrium, what I mean, in case of straight section where there is no curve, so in that equilibrium is attained, and suppose this is the point of contact. So in that case, the point of contact for both the wheels is such that whatever is this L in the case of straight section, it is equal. So if I say this L1 and L2 again, but I am writing it in blue color, so that L1 will be equal to L2 for straight section only. Remember this. Okay. Whatever L1 and L2 I am writing in blue, that is for the straight section when there is no curve at all, nor left nor right curve. But L1 and L2 will not have the same value in case of the red situation where you have a curve section. Okay, so that's how your same wheel, the coned wheel, it is used for the straight section as well and for the curve section as well. So I hope you have understood why coning of wheel is required. So the basic aim for that coning is to make your train take a turn in the desired direction. Okay. And it is the coning, as I told you, it is of the slope 1:20. Now comes the second part of the this concept, that is tilting of rails. Just a minute. Now, tilting, here I have done coning of wheels. Now here I'll be explaining you what is tilting of rails. Okay. Now till here you must have understood. Now what will happen is, if I keep this same assembly, whatever you are seeing here, I'll just change the color. Whatever you are seeing here now, that we have coned the wheels and these are the rails, if I keep it as it is, so the definite problem that you will be seeing is the point of contact. So even if I rest this assembly on these rails, it will be resting on somewhere here, on this edge, one side of the head of the rail. So if we keep it like this, and if we just move your railway, so what will happen is eventually only this surface or this side of your rail, it will get damaged because a lot of pressure is coming only on a small area. So that is not feasible, and that will cause a lot of damage to the rails, and it can also cause derailment. So what can be done is, in this case, whatever is the coning or the slope given to the wheels, you can give same slope to the rails as well. Now, by the sentence giving the same slope to the rails, I don't mean you have to cut the rail in that slope. Just what you need to do is you need to tilt this rail in this direction and this rail in this direction, such that you attain such a case. Okay. Now here, if you see, whatever is the slope given to this wheel, the same slope is being seen on the top surface of your rails. So by that, whatever is the load transferred, it will be direct and perpendicular. Okay. Now again, I have shown an exaggerated view. In practice, you even don't even realize that the rails are tilted. Okay. Now this tilting also, it is done in the same value, 1:20. Whatever is the value of this coning of the wheel, 1:20, the same value it is given for the rails, or the rails are tilted in the same way. Now comes the part where you need to give the flange. Now here in this picture, you can see there is only trade of the wheel. Nowhere you can see flange. Now why do you require flange? Okay. Why do you require flange? Now, if you see on curve section, as I told you, there is a tendency that your system, it will be shifted away from the curve due to the centrifugal force. It can be shifted to the left or the right, depending on what is the curve, on what side, left hand or right hand. So in that case, if suppose the curve centrifugal force is too much, so in that case, it can happen that the wheel, inner wheel, it comes down from this rail track and it reaches here. It reaches this position. So in that case, what is happening? There is a derailment. You must have heard this term a lot of times, that the rails or the railway has derailed somewhere. There is an accident due to derailment. So that derailment is nothing but when one of the wheel or both the wheels of your railway, they lose contact with your rails and they come off the track. So that is called as derailment. So to avoid this derailment, what can be done, or this flange, it comes into picture. So if I just extend a small part of this metal, and if I make this a flange over here, so what will happen, even if there is excessive push due to centrifugal force, this flange, it will hit this surface of the rail, and the moment it hits, then again it will push back due to the equal and opposite reaction. If it is hitting the rail by some force P, so that rail will also exert some opposite pressure, the reaction, okay, R, and it will again push back the system to its original position. Okay, so same way the flange will be on this side of your wheel. Okay, so even if it pushes a little bit more, this rail or this flange, it will make sure that the this wheel, it never leaves this flange, this rail. Okay, so that's why in railways, if you consider, you or I have discussed this previously also, in railways, when you sit, many of the times you tend to sway in left and right direction. Now you are swaying and your railway is not derailing because of these flanges. Your flanges are not allowing your wheels to get down from the rail. So that's the importance of that flange. Now, as I told you, I have just exaggerated the slopes. In actual practice, this is the actual figure that you can say. So the slope is very small. As I told you, you can't even see by your, or you will not even realize that there is a slope given, but there is a slope given to the wheel, the coning given is 1:20, and the same slope is given to the rails. So now in this case, only this much is the contact area. Okay. Now, yeah, if you have seen a railway track closely, a single rail if you consider, so the center part of the rail or some part of the rail, it not be always center, some portion of the rail it is darkened. Okay, so that indicates that that is mostly the point of contact of your wheel and the rail. So that is due to this uh, thing that you can see in this figure. Due to the slope, only there is a small part which is in contact, always in contact with the rails and rail and the wheel, and the other part it has a small bit of gap, uh, might be a few itself, 1 or maybe less than that, but there is a gap. And now how this rails will be tilted? So they are tilted by the phenomena or by the method of adzing of slipper. Now what is this adzing of slipper? We all know slipper, it is something like this, and on that you fit a rail. Now I am just showing this. I assume this I is the flat-footed rail. Okay. Now if I have to tilt this rail and if I have to make it fit like this, okay, again I am exaggerating the slope. If I have to tilt it like this, so obviously the base of this, the whatever is this area, okay, that also needs to be, or a raise has to be given. So that is nothing but adzing of slipper. Now you can do this by two ways. Either you can have a wedge. Wedge is nothing but a steel block or a wooden block which is of the size of or shape of the gap which needs to be filled. So you either put a wedge or inbuilt your slippers are given such kind of slopes. I am trying to draw that shape. Okay, so while construction of the slipper itself, if it is a concrete slipper, so you give this kind of a slope. I'll just highlight the section where that slope is given. So this yellow portion that I am highlighting, so that yellow portion is having a slope of 1:20. And then when you place the rail over it, so naturally that rail will also have a slope of 1:20. And then over that your wheel assembly will be there, and that wheel assembly will also have a slope of 1:20. Okay, I am just exaggerating the slopes, but for your understanding. So this method of providing slope in the slipper itself, that is known as adzing of slippers. So this is the whole concept of coning of wheels and tilting of rails. I hope you have understood it.